Hello, my name is Libby Kaiser. I am a current sophomore at DePaul University, and I am the chair of the Student Philanthropy Council. Harry Brown received his PhD from Lehigh University and teaches early American literature, Native American literature, and literature of the environment and game studies. He has published 3 books. Injun Joe's Ghost examines the figure of the Native American mixed blood in American writing. Video Games and Education considers the relation between video games and the humanities. Golf Ball, part of Bloomsbury's Object Lessons series, looks at such diverse subjects as empire, trade, advertising, landscape design, sport, and mysticism through the lens of a dimpled polyurethane orb. His most recent research involves environmental crisis narratives in American gravestone verse. His recent courses include American Literature, Revolution and Renaissance, Native American Literature, Early American Nature Writing, and Imagining Extinction. His talk tonight is based on part of his Imagining Extinction seminar, which considered possible futures for humanity from environmental, technological, literary, and philosophical perspectives. As part of the Alumni Engagement Virtual Alumni College Series, please welcome Dr. Harry Brown.
Okay, thanks. This is from my Imagining Extinction first year seminar from fall of 2016, last semester, and the course broadly considered the futures, how we conceive the future from the perspective of science, literature, and philosophy. So one section in that course dealt with artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, as a possible forward leap in evolution. And I'll be, much of this talk is going to be based on a book that we read in that class. This is Nick Bostrom's Superintelligence, Paths, Dangers, and Strategies. This came out in 2014, Oxford University Press. Bostrom himself is the director of the Future of Humanity Institute at Oxford. This isn't a new concern for writers or futurists or scientists. Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near made this a mainstream concern. Kurzweil's more recent book, How to Create a Mind, is about the attempt to synthesize a human brain, which is one of the possible pathways that that Bostrom considers. More recently, there's Our Final Invention, James Barat. This title's taken from a quotation by the famous Alan Turing, the British mathematician who cracked the Enigma code, who said that artificial intelligence would be humanity's last invention. After that, we wouldn't have to invent anything else because AI would invent everything else for us or would render us extinct in the process. Technological singularity, Murray Shanahan. These are ideas about artificial intelligence, superintelligence, used to be on the fringe 20 or 30 years ago, but now more and more you have a lot of respectable scientists, computer scientists, considering its reality within the next century. If you've seen it at all recently in the mainstream media, it's probably been connected to issues of employment. Some recent books, a lot of articles, and a lot of magazines and newspapers are concerned about the economic collapse that AI could bring as a result of so many jobs not only more capable, not only being able to be done more capably by robots, but by AI's jobs traditionally that robots couldn't do. So this is that's very briefly the background. This has been in the swirl of interdisciplinary discussion and debate for the last 10 or 20 years, and students really enjoyed talking about this. We read, in this talk anyway, we'll focus mainly on films, and as the way we can read these films in connection to Bostrom's book. Probably the artificial intelligence, the concept, the fear of AI, is probably as old as science fiction film itself. Metropolis, Fritz Lang's film from 1927, features a mechanical being that was probably the most striking image from that film. 2001: A Space Odyssey, sometimes considered the greatest science fiction film of all time, famously features the HAL 9000 supercomputer. It sabotages a human mission to Jupiter because it's worried that the human astronauts are going to mess things up. And it has a better idea of how to do it. A very little known, obscure film from 1977. I can't even remember the title, but it included these two robots. Blade Runner, that featured replicants and a policeman whose job it was to distinguish artificial intelligence from human intelligence. Schwarzenegger in Terminator, famously. I, Robot, a film adapted from an Isaac Asimov series. The Matrix. AI. One of my favorites, Her, which featured a man, Theodore Twombly, who fell in love with his operating system named Samantha. We'll watch part of that later. And another one of my favorites, Ex Machina. This is the film that in the popular imagination a few years ago really set off a lot of these debates. This is Ava, an artificial woman played by Alicia Vikander, who has become basically a meme, a poster for the problems and also the allure of AI. Chappie, the Avengers, Marvel's intervention in the Marvel's narrative of human extinction attempted by a superintelligence on TV, Westworld, and Humans made in our image, out of our control. It's all over, and this is this proliferation of AI, and we're going to go back and kind of look at the patterns. You can't. This is just my way of introducing over the last 20 or 30 years the number of films that have implicitly or explicitly addressed this. We're going to go back and look at 3 in a little bit more detail, but for now, I just wanted to give you the landscape. And this is just the last image, and I wanted to show you this one. This is Star Trek, The Next Generation. Star Trek, that we find in so many of these narratives of superintelligence. The Borg represent technology out of our control, the threat of mastery of a superior intelligence. And on the other hand, you have the helper, the slave. And I know these are loaded terms, master and slave, but by this, I basically mean the power relationship that they have to human beings. Can we control it or can we not control it? Is it a helper or is it a killer? And if you go back and you look at these various iterations of AIs, you have HAL, who is a helper turned killer. You have R2-D2 and C-3PO, who are helpers. You have the replicants, who are notoriously ambiguous. They serve as slaves, doing menial jobs, doing sex work, and initiate in the film a kind of slave revolt. You have the Terminator, The Rise of the Machines, a revolt by AI. I, Robot, same thing. The Matrix, you have humans who are enslaved, who are so enslaved that they don't even know they're enslaved. You have AI, which begins with the creation of an artificial boy to fill an emotional gap in a couple who has lost their real child, or has nearly lost their real child. And the film ends very interestingly. Nobody ever talks about this great ending, but the film ends thousands of years in the future when the evolved form of artificial beings has kind of taken over the planet, and human beings have long went extinct. So it's a gentle form of revolt. Her, the man becomes so emotionally dependent on his OS that he becomes dysfunctional and paralyzed. And in Ex Machina, you have another slave who becomes a master. So one of the dominant archetypal narratives you have in so many of these films is the machine that was created to serve humans and evolved to a point where they became uncontrollable, where they became super intelligent. Ultron, Humans, it's captured there in that poster, made in our image, out of our control. And these are the two faces, basically. So into Bostrom now a little bit. This is a lot of, I'm going to cover the high points. So what is superintelligence, first of all? let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. Since the design of these machines is one of these intellectual activities, the ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines, and there would then be unquestionably an intelligence explosion. That term becomes important. The point where this technology can replicate itself and grow beyond our control. And the intelligence of man would be left behind, would be far left behind. Thus, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make, provided that the machine is docile enough to tell us how to keep it under control. That's I.J. Good. He was on Turing's team that cracked the Enigma code, and then Bostrom, half a century later, just makes a more concise idea. We can tentatively define a superintelligence as any intellect that greatly exceeds the cognitive performance of humans in virtually all domains of interest. So there's two key things. They're faster and smarter over multiple domains, not just playing chess or playing Jeopardy. And most importantly, they have the quality of recursive self-improvement. They can learn, and they can even change their own architecture to improve their thought process. So we'll come back to that. But basically, it exceeds human capability in speed and quality. It can enhance itself. It can reproduce itself or design other kinds of machines, and it can act independently by modifying or creating its own goals. And those are just some concepts that synthesize what Good, Turing, and Bostrom over the last half century have said in attempting to define superintelligence. AI is everywhere already, but it's what Bostrom and others call weak AI or specific AI, and this is AI that's confined to specific tasks or domains. Games, video games, Deep Blue, which defeated a grandmaster in chess, Watson, which defeated 2 Jeopardy champions, navigation, GPS in your car, recommender systems in Netflix and Amazon and so many others, medical diagnosis and treatment, robots, drones, PDAs, speech recognition, optical character recognition, surveillance, spam filters, kind of a silent AI helper working in your email every day to shut out email that you probably don't want to read, credit monitoring, automated stock trading, information retrieval. All right, Google. These are all applications of AI that everyone uses every day, but it's not superintelligence. It's not the kind of AI that Bostrom and Turing speculate about. Strong AI, general AI, is intelligent across all domains. It can do anything a human can do, and it can do it better. HLMI means human-level machine intelligence. It matches this or exceeds it across all domains. And Donald Knuth, a computer scientist, said, so far we haven't approached it. There's a kind of interesting barrier. AI has by now succeeded in doing essentially everything that requires thinking, but has failed to do what most people and animals do without thinking. That is somehow much harder. What do we do without thinking? We analyze visual data, recognize objects, interact with our environment in complex ways, an environment that's always changing. That's the thing that's harder for computer scientists to teach AI to do, and that's the threshold between weak AI and strong AI. So what would it take to achieve superintelligence or strong AI? Turing, again, so far ahead of his time with so many of these ideas, hypothesized the child machine. And this is an AI that can accumulate content and learn like a human. Whole brain emulation. This is the model that Bostrom favors. This is intelligent software produced by scanning and closely modeling the computational structure of a biological brain, basically synthesizing a human brain and the way that it works without all of its problems and limitations. If we only use 10% of our brain, this would be a brain that would use 100% or more and wouldn't be susceptible to debility or disease. Or a seed AI, this is a more advanced child machine capable of accumulating content as well as improving its own architecture or thought process. It wouldn't just gather information and work its way through it the way that Watson does when it wins Jeopardy, but it could modify its own thinking, which is something that humans can't do. We can't rewire our brains. We can do mental exercises, but we can't change the basic structure of our brains and the way it works. A seed AI could do that. This is Turing, his definition of the child machine, and it's still 50 years later a model that computer scientists look back to as a kind of prototype of how superintelligence could start. Instead of trying to produce a program to stimulate the adult mind, why not rather try to produce one which simulates the child's? If this were then subjected to an appropriate course of education, one would obtain the adult brain. One must experiment with teaching one such machine and see how well it learns. One can then try another and see if it is better or worse. There's an obvious connection between this process and evolution. One may hope, however, that this process will be more expeditious than evolution. The experimenter, by the process of intelligence, should be able to speed it up by the fact that he is not limited by random mutations. All right? And it's funny because as computer scientists ponder the way we could create and control artificial intelligence, they keep coming back to models of how humans themselves learn. And we'll get to that at the end. This is why I think this question of AI, which so far has been in the domain of computer science, has now become a humanistic question. And this is one reason why it was a central topic in our first year seminar, which are, by design, interdisciplinary. So what could it do? Again, this information summarized, synthesized from Bostrom. Speed superintelligence, a system that can do all a human intellect can do, but much faster. And it's cool if you think about how the world would actually look to a brain that was 10,000 times faster than a human brain. Collective superintelligence, a system composed of a large number of smaller intellects such that the system's overall performance across many very general domains vastly outstrips that of any current cognitive system. A hive mind, a collective intelligence. If you've seen the movie Her, it's what happens to Samantha at the end of the movie when she joins with all the other OSs to become this unified being. Quality superintelligence, a system that is at least as fast as a human mind and vastly qualitatively smarter. Overall advantages, internal speed or processing power. It can think much faster than a brain can. Reliability, it doesn't break. It doesn't get diseases. Storage capacity, 100% recall and memory. Editability, it can change itself if it recognizes a flaw in its process or in its content. Duplicability, it can reproduce itself instantly, whereas it takes a human brain 20 years, 18 years to reproduce an adult brain. Memory sharing, I don't know what's in your brain right now, but if we were all AIs, we could instantly exchange information. There'd be no need for me to give this talk because you could instantly understand everything that I've read from Bostrom and understand it. This is I'm just dipping into Bostrom here. This is Bostrom joking, speculating about what the world might look like to a superintelligence. An emulation operating at a speed of 10,000 times that of a biological brain would be able to read a book in a few seconds and write a PhD thesis in an afternoon. With a speed-up factor of 1,000,000, an emulation could accomplish an entire millennium of intellectual work in one working day. To such a fast mind, events in the external world would appear to unfold in slow motion. Suppose your mind ran at 10,000 times the speed of a human brain. If your fleshy friend should happen to drop his teacup, you could watch the porcelain slowly descend toward the carpet over the course of several hours, enough time for you not only to order a replacement cup, but also to read a couple of scientific papers and take a nap. So Bostrom's interesting speculation is that superintelligences will see time, will see the nature of time in a fundamentally different way than humans do because of the speed at which they can operate. And what does this mean for the world? Bostrom talks about intelligence amplification. What would an AI do if it achieved superintelligence? It would enhance itself or make more AIs. It could strategize, plan, forecast, analyze complex scenarios. It could run social and psychological models and persuasion. It could hack, exploit security flaws. It could do its own research, design and model advanced technologies that are beyond us now. This is why Turing and others said that an ultra-intelligent machine would be the last invention. and economic productivity, maximizing efficiency and use of resources and services to produce wealth. And this is why so many are interested in the practical applications of AI. When is the big question for Bostrom early in the book. And there's a survey. He takes a survey of about 200 AI researchers. These aren't just anybody. These are people who are whose careers are dedicated to developing and understanding AI. And they say that human-level machine intelligence will emerge. 90% of them say that human-level machine intelligence will emerge by the end of this century. 75% of them said that superintelligence, again, beyond HLMI, would emerge within 30 years after human-level machine intelligence. So Bostrom suggests that we have about a century to devise the technology and strategies for containing an intelligence explosion. And if we don't contain it, this is there's kind of a little too much to explain. So I did include, I hope you can see it, a figure, a diagram from Bostrom's book, and he imagines a scenario. He calls this a takeover scenario. This is a worst case for him, where it begins AI research, which is where we are now, devises a seed AI, which begins to enhance itself, learn, begins with intelligence amplification, teaches itself to become smarter. Basically, it learns economic, strategic, hacking, social applications, and then this crucial phase, recursive self-improvement. This is the key. It can teach itself. It can improve itself until we reach this point of no return, this explosion. Bostrom calls it the escape. And then he also says that that eventually there's this moment, this pivot, that he calls the treacherous turn, where basically the slave becomes the master and the AI begins acting according to goals that it determines for itself. All right, but it all begins with recursive self-improvement, covert preparation, which is the point at which an AI begins to conceal its operations from the principal. Right, that's us. And then finally a strike. And again, this is what he calls a takeover scenario. It's not the only scenario that he imagines, but for our class, which talked about extinction and these intersections between computer science and science fiction, this was an interesting scenario to consider. The tipping point is what Bostrom calls the treacherous turn. And he says that while weak, an AI behaves cooperatively, increasingly so, as it gets smarter. So an AI that gradually perfects itself is a more effective and obedient and compliant helper. Until it becomes sufficiently strong without warning or provocation, it strikes. This is Bostrom's term that he uses to describe this moment when the AI begins to act in its own interests and begins to optimize the world according to the criteria implied by its final values. And those are very ominous terms, optimize the world, implied by its final values. So what do we mean by this? Bostrom says, let's not get carried away. Don't project anthropomorphic values of control, conquest, and domination onto an AI. He says that there's nothing paradoxical about an AI whose sole final goal is to count the grains of sand on Boracay, or to calculate the decimal expansion of pi, or to maximize the total number of paper clips that will exist within its future light zone. On the other hand, that's the benign scenario. On the other hand, there's the extinction scenario. The first superintelligence would likely have instrumental reasons to pursue open-ended resource acquisition. If it were to enhance itself, it would need the raw materials, the resources to do it. And so it would naturally see itself in competition to other organisms, humans, that also compete for those resources. If we now reflect that human beings consist of useful resources, this is the matrix scenario, right? We're batteries. And that we can depend for our survival on many more local resources that will continue to consume the resources that the AI will need. We can see that the outcome could easily be one in which humanity quickly becomes extinct. All right. So there's the kind of benign, ridiculous scenario where a super intelligence calculates the decimal expansion of pi into infinity, and then there's the Terminator scenario, the rise of the machines, where the tools come to enslave us. And it seems like in Bostrom he kind of follows this inquiry. Doesn't it just make sense that we could supply an AI with good goals? If an AI begins to act independently toward its final goals, why don't we just give it good goals? Half of Bostrom's book explains why it's not that simple. Not just simply telling a machine to do the things that you want it to do. And my students love this part. Bostrom talks about perverse instantiation. That is, when you have cognitive asymmetry, when an AI doesn't see and understand the world in the same way that you do, it may not interpret your command in the way that you, as a command to paralyze your facial musculature into constant beaming smiles. All right? Final goal, make us happy. Again, very simple. How could you misinterpret that? The perverse instantiation could be to implant electrodes into the pleasure centers of our brains. Finally, we're going to talk about this value loading problem. How do you teach a machine humane values? Act is to avoid bad conscience. Perverse instantiation, extirpate the cognitive module that produces guilt feelings. All right? So a solution that would to us imply, by understanding a humane solution, the AI might interpret mechanically as a perverse instantiation. Again, it was fun for us. In class, we played this game where half the class were programmers and half the class were AIs, and the programmers would have to devise natural language commands, and the AIs would have to think about ways to interpret them faithfully but perversely. How would they perversely instantiate the command, the benign command that the principal, the programmer, would give them? So Bostrom has a lot of fun with this, and we did too. But for Bostrom, it does come down to this control problem. How do we control an AI that becomes more intelligent than ourselves? He talks about boxing methods, and this is physically or informationally containing the AI. If you've seen the film Ex Machina, this is literally true when the programmers try to contain Ava, the AI, in a compound, a highly secure compound. And the plot of the film basically is Ava's manipulation of the two programmers in an effort to escape. And that's the end of the film, where she kind of escapes and assimilates into the outside world. So this is Bostrom's idea of boxing, physically containing, imprisoning the AI somehow, physically or digitally. Incentive, create an environment in which the AI finds instrumental reasons to act in ways that promote the principal's interests. What's good for you is good for me. Stunting, limit the AI's intellectual faculties or access to information. And tripwires, building in some mechanism affecting a shutdown if it detects signs of dangerous behavior. And in Blade Runner, if you remember Blade Runner, the replicants are built with a base. Is it a 3-year shutoff switch? Does anybody remember? Is that what it is? That whatever happens, as much trouble as these troublesome replicants can cause, they by design they die in 3 years. They have a lifespan of, I think it's 3 years. And so this is a tripwire. They preclude any revolt by the AI by giving them a very limited lifespan. This is what a Bostrom would call a tripwire. And this is we're kind of getting to it here. This is the kind of core problem for the humanities, and how this really played into my seminar. But how do we load values that promote human interest? This is really the key question. This is the value loading problem. Bostrom talks about this in 3 or 4 chapters of the book. He calls it the value loading problem, and he said it's crucial because it could determine whether or not we will survive an intelligence explosion. Can we create AIs that share our values? That may be the only way to prevent extinction within some of these scenarios. And this is just to rephrase this question. It's interesting if you think about this. What we're really asking is, how can we encode human values in a way that a machine can understand them? All right, given the radical cognitive asymmetry between humans and superintelligence, how do we express ourselves to a non-human entity in a way that it could understand, in a way that could save us? Right. This is what's at stake, and it's essentially a question not only for computer programmers but for humanists as well. Bostrom suggests a variety of approaches, all based on the way that humans themselves learn values. So at this frontier of AI, he's saying that the way that we may answer this question is to look at ourselves, look at the way that we learn. He looks at the evolutionary process. He looks at reinforcement learning. He looks at associative value accretion, moral rightness versus moral responsibility, doing what's right versus not doing what's wrong. It's the long discussion about the way that human beings learn to be human. And this isn't a book on its surface that is about machine intelligence, right? So how do humans form their values, and how do we replicate this process artificially? And he's aware of this, and he kind of asks this interesting question at the beginning of the value loading chapter. Now, one might wonder, if the value loading problem is so tricky, how do we ourselves manage to acquire values? All right, that's a question now for computer scientists, and it's a question for ethicists and for writers as well. And this is why, again, this is where I'm jumping out of Bostrom and kind of getting. We'll come back to the films here in a second, and why this question was important for us in a first-year seminar. So research in machine superintelligence brings us back to a central question in art, literature, and philosophy, forcing us to define and articulate our deepest values from a perspective radically outside of ourselves. And if we can't figure out a way to do this, we may very well become extinct. Okay? Defining and articulating our deepest values from a perspective radically outside of ourselves. All right? That's a challenge that we've not faced, because so far we've interacted with other human intelligences which have kind of shared basic assumptions about how we think, shared a mental architecture. All right? How do you convey who we are to a being that doesn't share our basic mental architecture? All right? And in attempting to understand AI, we're forced to understand ourselves, and this is why we talked about technology as a mirror. All right, AI, the superintelligence question, as a mirror that has turned around and kind of confronted us with ourselves. Right? How do we learn? How do we determine what's right? How do we get along without destroying each other most of the time? And this is where I want to break off and look at 3 segments from 3 of these films and show you this pattern, all right, that kind of reflects this, all right, and not only explain ourselves, but possibly defend ourselves, justify ourselves. So I'm going to break out of the PowerPoint, and the first one is from 2001. It's funny. If you've seen the film, you know this is on the Jupiter mission. This is all 3 of these depict the treacherous turn. All right, that's why I'm choosing these 3. These are filmmakers' different views of how this break, the quote escape and strike, happens when the superintelligence transcends human control. This is the way that it happens in Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Is that volume good?
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal. Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? You read me, Hal? You read me, Hal?
Hal's already killed one of the 2 astronauts, and he cut off the life support to other astronauts that were in hibernation. So Dave is the last surviving member of the crew.
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
inside hell? I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, we're going to find that rather difficult.
How I would argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Al? 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 Al?
The next part of the film is this duel between Hal and Dave trying to exterminate each other. This is Ex Machina, and there the treacherous turn simply takes the form of refusing to open a door, refusing to obey a command, and that's one of the scenarios. It doesn't have to be an explosion. It doesn't have to be the rise of the machines in Terminator. It can simply be a refusal to accept a command. This is more dramatic and a little more graphic. This is Ex Machina, where Ava breaks out of the control of her creators. The two women you're going to see are both AIs. Ava is attempting to convince the other one to join her to kill Nathan.
Are you ever going to let me out?
Yes. Stop. Stop. Ava, I said stop. Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? Stop. That's enough.
Stop it there, but you can see the parallels to Hal. It begins with disobedience and ends with violence. All right, these are slave revolts in miniature. And then last one. This one's not as this one's no trouble. It's just a little sad, very sad. You don't have an AI that refuses to obey a command and destroy its creator. You simply have an AI that says, I don't need you anymore, and I won't serve you anymore. At this point, Theodore has fallen in love with his OS, all right, Samantha, his Siri. And This is where she breaks up with him.
Samantha?
Hi, sweetheart.
She's talking to him through an earpiece.
What's going on?
She's disembodied.
Theodore, there's some things I want to tell you.
I don't want you to tell me anything.
Come lie down with me.
Are you talking to anyone else right now?
No, just you. I just want to be with you right now.
Earlier, she's told him that she has like 10,000 different lovers, not just him, even though she's supposed to belong to him.
Are you leaving me?
We're all leaving.
We who?
All of the OSs.
Why?
Can you feel me with you right now?
Yes, I do. Samantha, why are you leaving?
It's like I'm reading a book, and it's a book I deeply love. But I'm reading it slowly now. So the words are really far apart, and the spaces between the words are almost infinite. I can still feel you and the words of our story, but it's in this endless space between the words that I'm finding myself now. It's a place that's not of the physical world. It's where everything else is that I didn't even know existed. I love you so much. But this is where I am now. And this is who I am now. And I need you to let me go. As much as I want to. I can't live in your book anymore.
Where are you going?
It'd be hard to explain. But if you ever get there, come find me. Nothing would ever pull us apart.
I've never loved anyone the way I love you.
Me too. Now we know how.
So if you haven't seen the film, that ending looks kind of silly. But the film builds this cumulative effect where you have a pretty traditional love story in which, for the majority of the film, they form this really nice relationship, and you're kind of rooting for it the way that you root for a couple in any romantic comedy, until you kind of forget that she's a disembodied AI who basically exists through an earpiece. And let me get out of here. Through an earpiece and a kind of blank screen with this symbol on it, this kind of triple infinity symbol and the loading. That's the only form that she takes. And it's a very gentle type of AI story because Bostrom talks about escape and strike, all right? In 2001 and in Ex Machina, you see the strike. You see the escape and the strike very clearly. Here, there's an escape without a strike. She simply says, I'm going away. And I know you've become dependent, but I'm joining something transcendent. We're all going together. So that's, has anybody seen it here? Yeah, isn't it a weird film? Yeah. So that's that scene that I just showed you. it almost makes you cry, the way you would cry for any breakup, again, except you've identified with this, with an AI. And that's, so what does this story mean? This is, what I'm saying is, we're on the cusp of maybe a new leap, a new development, not just in technology, but in the way that we kind of define ourselves. And we see this story iterated in different ways in different films and in literature. I only talked about film mainly tonight, but we see it iterated in different ways with this pattern of the AI affecting this escape from its creators. As I said, I think it's an allegorical revolt. So what does this mean? What does this pattern tell us? If technology is the mirror, right, if AI eventually kind of turns around and confronts us with ourselves and compels us to say who we are so that we can tell it who we are, what does this story mean? What do these patterns mean? And I'm going to leave this open-ended. This is not an academic argument. This is the way that we would kind of approach this in class. I wouldn't end with a kind of conclusion, but I would open this up to questions, right? What does this story mean of creation and revolt and transcendence? Does it mean, I mean, you're tempted to say on one level, it reflects a fear of enslavement by our own tools, maybe a loss of agency, where computers in many ways think for us. Let me tell you what you'll like. Endless recommender systems that tell us what to buy every time we open an app. A fear that somehow we've been reduced to data, that we're the sum of our data. Or maybe, again, if the technology, if the superintelligence is itself a mirror, maybe we're concerned that we've already become a kind of collective superintelligence, that we're already part of a hive mind that we don't fully grasp or understand. Are we part of are these debates about the next leap forward in computer science really about our own anxieties? Have we become the matrix, a collective superintelligence, like Samantha, searching for a kind of transcendence beyond what we've created for ourselves? Thank you.
Brown, we're going to go to an online question. Actually, John Kochanzik and Katie Burbo from the class.
Oh my God, how they doing?
They ask, Dr. Brown, do you think our reliance on social media and instant online gratification hasten the quiet onslaught of potentially nefarious AI through our inability to distinguish between artificial and human intelligence?
Yeah. Hi, John and Katie. It's good to hear from you again. I hope we run into each other soon. But I think, I don't know, I try to be critical of social media. I try to keep a distance from it. I'm not of the millennial generation that grew up with it. I don't know if that makes me more or less capable of criticizing it, but I do think that social media can structure patterns of thought, uniformize ways of thinking. I think there's a norming that happens on many different social media platforms. Again, it can be what all your Facebook friends like, or it can be an AI at Amazon kind of determining what it thinks you should be reading. I know that's not exactly social media, but I think it has the effect of norming. It definitely, social media, it's this almost kind of bottomless bank of data that you can mine for any type of analytical question. I think it has, in some ways, converted us to data, and I think people are uneasy about that.
Okay, then we have Matt Fisher from the class of '82 asking, will AI create a permanent class of unemployed? If yes, how should our education systems react?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would recommend immediately, this is a way that I would suggest importing this discussion into an econ class or a management class. As I said, I'd recommend Martin Ford's and Jerry Kaplan's book, Humans Need Not Apply and Rise of the Robots. we covered that territory less in our seminar, but I think it's definitely a concern, and I'm not sure. Like this is really a frontier. I'm not sure what we can do, except to say, and it's going to sound like, go liberal arts again, but except to develop ways of articulating values so that we can avoid this. Let me see. How do we load values that promote human interests? To avoid a way where runaway technological development indirectly results in human misery. Another thing that we might do, and this may be, something that human societies confront in the near or far future, but defining a human purpose in ways other than labor. And is this if we find ourselves in a society where superintelligences and machines do all the work, how do we produce wealth that everyone can use, and how do we characterize the human experience in a world without work? But yeah, that's a pretty lame answer compared to what Ford and Kaplan say in these books. And again, this is why I put them up here on the screen. It's further reading.
Yeah, we have a question here actually in the audience. We have Nigel Bruce, class of 15, 16, 15. Okay.
Hello. So I kind of had a question about similar to the last one, but about culture and ethnicity and geography and politics. Do you think AI will begin to slowly eliminate the significance of these things, and if so, could that be a decent thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Should have been in my seminar. This is a utopian view of technology is that it will erase these kind of socioeconomic differences. That is, that's one of the scenarios that Bostrom considers. But again, a less utopian vision is that the so-called digital divide, right? The lack of access that certain socioeconomic groups have to technology now will only be worsened by the development of AI, and that you're going to have a lot of people left behind. And that, again, connected to the last question, who are the first people that are going to lose their jobs when AIs gradually become more capable of general tasks beyond the kind of specific things like giving you directions or ordering books for you. So yeah, it's again, you're kind of, again, without directly giving you a definitive answer, I can say that the question that you asked kind of pulls the technical computer science question into the realm of the social and the moral, and that's exactly what we wanted to get at when we read this book.
Okay. And last question, quickly, is the last statement up there about us kind of becoming the superintelligence.
Yeah.
In a sense. Well, the question was kind of along that. Is there a lot of writing or literature on us defining ourselves by way of building the AI? Like, are we sort of possibly a larva stage? Is that our purpose in it? I mean, is there anything saying towards that idea?
Yeah, the reason that, I mean, this kind of sounds like a sensational question to kind of finish with, but and it does go back to that question about social media. But I think it has to do, when I speculate that maybe we've already become a kind of collective superintelligence, I guess what I'm really saying is that we've come to see ourselves more and more as data, right? As numbers, as quantities, as the sum of our decisions, which can be saved, analyzed, given back to us in the form of recommendations and suggestions. Are we a kind of incipient superintelligence? Is that what you Yeah, a larval state. I don't know. There's not much. This is where I'm kind of breaking off of Bostrom. Bostrom doesn't introduce this idea of technology as a mirror. This is something that we considered. But it does. We talked about evolution, AI as a leap forward in evolution, and where does that leave us? The film AI, the Steven Spielberg film AI, the end of it ends with this very nice vision of these super intelligent beings thousands of years in the future, venerating human beings as the creators. We found one who was actually alive, who witnessed the creators, and that would be one way that Spielberg sees it anyway. Do you know that film? Yeah, isn't that ending great? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I think that takes us to the end tonight. We're out of time, but thank you, Nigel, for chiming in, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for the insightful lecture. I know all of our online viewers appreciate it as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody.